being that Propelled in Sacrilege is your first impression of Defeated Sanity, what has been something that you're like super proud of on this new single?
Um, in terms of like my delivery or
Right. Yeah. A question I had off of that was like, did your initial image match the delivery?
oh, so you mean like what I was like kind of how I was anticipating it coming out versus what the
Yeah.
final result actually was. Um,
Right.
yeah, so I mean, since I joined the band, and I mean, since I've been doing vocals in general, I've always been kind of, you know, taking influence from, all kinds of different forms of metal, but I mean, death metal being the most prominent, of course.
Yeah.
Um, but ever since starting vocals, I've been trying to really find my own voice and also trying to do justice to death metal vocals in general. So, I mean, really,
Right.
up to the point of me actually like going into the studio and laying down the vocals. I mean, I was always trying different textures and different kinds of sounds, and eventually kind of settled on. I mean, throughout the album, when as everybody will hear when it comes out, there's a lot of different vocal techniques on it, but there's also very sort of principle, sort of a sound to my voice, and that's what I've been shaping for a long time. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Somebody posted on Facebook that it got leaked and I couldn't find it. So I
oh,
don't
good
know what
thing.
that
Well,
guy
it's
was
good that
about.
you can't find it.
Yeah.
Good for
I don't-
us.
Did that actually happen then?
I don't know. I mean, I heard that it did, but I don't.
How?
I
You know
never.
what I mean?
I never actually found the files, but I don't know. I mean, it's bound to happen. It happens with every album. This is the world we live in these days.
Yeah, exactly. So what's your overall feeling about the new album?
Um, I mean, me speaking as first and foremost a Defeated Sanity fan, it's a good one. It
Yep.
as a listener, it would I think it would end up being one of my favorites. In terms of having an unbiased opinion on it. Granted, I was on this record. Um, I mean, just musically, it's all
Kicks
the
ass.
brutal stuff that people were missing on the last album. Well, I mean, the certain aspects of the last album, like the Dharmata material,
Mm.
um, that reeled a lot of people in, but also kind of shut out some of the diehard fans of Defeated Sanity, who are Psalms or bust sort of people. Um, but I think this album is a really, really good marriage of the forward-thinking Defeated Sanity style while
Right.
still maintaining the really aggressive and brutal aspects. It's come back tenfold, I would say, on this one.
Did you do any like I know Defeated Sanity, they're kind of to the roots type band. Did you guys do anything like weird on the album that like we wouldn't expect?
Uh, I don't. I mean, hard to say in terms of what to and what not to expect, especially coming from us, because there's a lot of really weird shit in there. That I mean,
Yeah.
even in the single, the um during that main slam where there's this weird little flutter part that's actually like a basically the that little lick.
Yeah.
That thing is like basically just smacking down on a whammy bar on a
Right.
harmonic, and that's like it's just weird techniques like that are just like it's always little nuances that Lilith focuses on and really tries to make little very special moments, but he's always very adamant about being able to recreate that exact thing live
Right.
because
Yeah,
he's
that's
he's
not
he's true.
yeah, there's nothing worse than somebody releasing an album and then you see them live and it's like, "Damn, you're like half good." Like what
Yeah,
happened? What happened,
yeah,
dude?
no, totally. And I mean I mean I'm like that. I like to see a band and think, oh my god, this is the album but better.
Right.
That's when I know that's a band that pulls pulls everything off live is when it is the album but better,
Yeah,
which is
exactly.
kind of rare.
Yeah,
But
that doesn't happen a lot.
that's what separates the greats, you know.
Yeah.
All the
So,
greatest bands do or always deliver on that
right.
front.
What's the like deep rooted meaning behind the album name?
So the album is called The Sanguinary Impetus,
Mhm.
and essentially this whole album, the concept of this album is there's absolutely no human elements. It's entirely about the animal kingdom and nature.
Yep.
Um, so basically, to put it to basically sum up the whole album, each song is about a different subject, be it a certain animal or in one case a plant that have a very sort of a unique either hunting strategy or practice, or also weird sort of sexual practices as well.
Yeah.
Um, each song is basically based off a different subject in that manner.
Like a different
So
animal is what
a
you're
different
saying?
animal, yeah. It's basically every song is a different animal, and basically a narrative describing its like the process through which it
Lives?
kills its prey.
I got you. That's
Essentially,
actually kind of sick. I've never heard a band do that.
we hadn't either, so we just jumped on it. We were like, hey, this is a really cool, unique concept, and we thought of it. I mean, we were talking about this concept. I would say like, man, maybe like 4 years ago. Like, I wasn't even in the band that long, and we were already talking about this idea. And by the time we came to really getting the songs together, we were still like, yeah, let's do this. So we went right down that rabbit hole, and it ended up working out really well. And I hope people actually read the lyrics to this album,
Yeah,
because we worked
exactly.
really hard on these.
So, who's the top of the food chain on this album?
So I mean, granted, for anybody listening, they must be that interested to know. So I will give some detail. Is so the pinnacle of the album is going to be the chimpanzee, because the
Yes.
chimpanzee is the closest relative to the human.
Mhm.
And also, in terms of how it behaves, it it kind of personifies the really animalistic nature of humans that we so desperately try to suppress.
Right.
So that's kind of subliminally how we wanted to end the album. Was this whole album is just these savage beasts, you know, killing their prey and like doing whatever they can to survive. And then we come to the end of the album and we end up almost with a return to form, coming back to humanity in a way by
That
being the closest relative to humanity.
that is unique.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, and also we kind of took this approach early on, but it kind of I'm trying to think of the album's flow from top to bottom in terms of which animal is at which point in the album. But for the most part, we tried to make all the smallest, most like almost insignificant creatures start at the beginning of the album, and then they get bigger as the song goes, and more aggressive as the album goes, and more aggressive as the album continues. So
But
that
the
actually the first
beginning doesn't start very mellow. It's all heavy shit.
it's all heavy, yeah, it's all heavy, but it's the subject matter. It's the subject matter that starts off small. So the first song is going to be about a pitcher plant, which is a carnivorous plant. It's actually not even an animal, technically speaking. And then we go on to a few insects, which, if you know Insecta Incendium, which is a song we released a long time ago, actually, um, that we revamped for the album as well. And that's about the, whatchamacallit, what's the name of it? They attack honeybees, but it's a Japanese hornet. I was drawing a
Oh, okay.
blank. And they attack honeybee colonies, and basically. But oh no, wait, hold on. I'm turning this all backwards because actually, No, it's funny because actually where I live in the Pacific Northwest in Washington, and
Right.
we have these Japanese giant, like they're called murder wasps,
Oh
coming over
God.
from Asia right now, and they're like starting to like reproduce, and people are seeing them everywhere, and they're huge. So that's actually not what the song's about. The song is about Japanese honeybees who essentially, basically, a wasp will come into their nest in order
Yep.
like to invade and try to, you know, conquer their hive. But essentially, what they do is they pounce on top of the wasp and basically cover it, and they vibrate, and essentially they're creating energy, and the honeybees can actually withstand just a few degrees higher in temperature than the wasp can. So they essentially roast the wasp alive.
What the fuck?
Yeah, and it's brutal. So that's what Insecta Incendium is about, which Insecta Incendium translates. It's from Latin. It translates to fire insect, if
Gotcha.
my translation is correct. But
So do you plan on sticking with this concept for your future stuff,
no,
or you're gonna
it would
change
be
it?
way too hard to. I think it would be way too difficult um, to try to push this further because we were finding that in terms of just language and writing the lyrics, that it was kind of hard to not reuse phrases and words when dealing with animals and
Yeah.
dealing with
Yeah,
certain
because they do the
aspects. It
same
was hard.
thing.
Yeah,
Right.
it was kind of hard to describe similar scenarios with fresh language.
Mhm.
And by the end of the lyric writing process, we were like our tanks were running on empty. Um,
Right.
so we were I mean, by the time we reached the finish line, we were exhausted mentally.
So, did you say you wrote this album like 50/50?
In terms of the vocals and the lyrics, yeah, just about. Me and Lily, we would basically get together at least once a week over the course of, man, consistently over the course of probably like a year and a half, and we would just sit and write lyrics and talk about ideas. Um,
That
and at
doesn't
certain
happen a lot.
No, not really. And
Wow.
I mean, Lily has a bird's eye view over everything in terms of the music and how everything goes together, and the vocals, especially on this album, the vocals are another instrument, and with the vocals gone,
Mhm.
the certain parts of the music almost don't make sense. It's a piece of the puzzle that is basically filling in part of the structure musically. So
Right.
he had at certain points in certain songs, he had very concrete vocal patterns in mind that were going to hold the music together.
So, did he do any pre-production for this album, or how what was your method?
We did. So we did have demo recordings done over the course of time. So he would, sometimes he would go into the studio, like just a friend's studio, and record demos on drums, and then he would record guitars and send them to Jacob to work on the bass parts, and he would also send them to me, and I would do. This was also after we had written the lyrics in terms of doing vocal demos.
Mhm.
For the most part, the lyrics would be done before I did vocal demos.
Right.
So essentially, the demos that he made, he would send to me, and then I would record vocals on top, and then actually I would actually end up doing it on top of the album tracks because Lily went into the studio last summer, almost a year ago now, to do the drum tracking with Mike Heller from Malignancy. So
Sweet.
so
Yeah.
he went to LA and Jacob was there too, and they did drums and bass over the course of I think 2 weeks in LA with Mike, and then Lily did some I think like demo guitars, or I don't know if those are the ones we ended up actually using, but we did end up reamping when we went to the studio to do vocals and mix. But
Mhm.
anyway, at which point I would get those tracks, and I was essentially doing demos on top of the tracks that we were actually that were actually the final recordings. So
So you
there,
did So 3 parts basically. You did a pre-production, you did a pre-album, and then you did the actual final
Kind of,
mix.
yeah. It was very it was pretty drawn out, and it allowed us to really take time to really listen to how everything was interacting and make changes with a clear mind.
Mm-hmm.
While also, because I mean, to me, it's very valuable to be able to listen to things in and out of context.
Yeah.
So you do a vocal demo, you do a demo for anything really, and you listen to it and you shape things, and then you don't listen to it for say a week, and then you
And then
listen
you
to it
listen to it in
again.
the car.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And yeah, you sit and listen to whatever records you have in your car, and then you pop that on, and you kind of start to. It can go either way. Sometimes you start to think, "Oh, I'm being way too hard on myself. This is badass," or vice
Yeah.
versa. This is horrible. I have to rework some things. Uh,
Revamp, rework, start
yeah.
again.
So the in terms of the vocals for this album, I essentially did them from home for the most
Oh,
part.
sweet.
For the
Cheap.
most part, I tracked them from home
Yep.
on top of the final tracks that we were going to take to mixing.
What
Um,
type of mic?
I used an SM7B.
That's what I'm using right now.
Nice. That's what I was trying to get working at the beginning of this meeting, but
It's
wasn't
all right.
happening. This wasn't happening today.
Zencaster, you did a shit job.
Yeah, you did.
So, last question is in the future, if you had to choose a cover from any band, what would it be?
Oh man, that's hard. For Defeated to do?
Yeah.
Uh
Here, let me make it even tougher on you.
oh
It
god.
can't be a death metal band.
It can't be a death metal band.
It's got to be like some abstract genre.
But could we make a death metal version of it?
Yes,
I'm
yeah.
assuming that's what we would be
Obviously,
doing.
make it in your
Oh, okay.
realm.
It would have to be something classical. It would have to be something like some abstract, like sort of contemporary, like post World War II composition, like Messiaen or Penderecki. Something that's already really screwed up on a harmonic level.
Right.
We would have a field day doing something like that, and I know Lily would agree.